I have gotten this question from a lot of you wanting to know how to prioritize your business and your life when everything is a priority. Everything seems important. If that is you, that's where you are right now, this video is so for you. I'm gonna lend you a really important mindset shift that I want you to absorb, a model of prioritization that I use and that I teach my clients with great effects, and the 2 steps to implement it. And stick around to the end because I'm gonna be answering the question that inevitably comes next when you get all freaked out by what I'm about to teach you. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, hit that like button to let me know, and let's jump in. Welcome back, boss ladies, and hello to the gents and the newbies. My name is Tara Wagner of exotara.us, a belief breakthrough coach with nearly a decade experience helping women overcome their limiting beliefs. If you're a female entrepreneur who would prefer to crush her goals, not her soul, be sure to subscribe for weekly videos to help you overcome your own limiting beliefs and bad habits holding you back from that next level of success. Like I mentioned, I get this question so often. How do I prioritize the things that really matter when everything seems to matter? And the first thing I'm gonna do is drop a little truth bomb on you with a mindset shift I really want you to absorb. When everything is important, nothing is. I want you to think of putting all the things in your life on a pedestal, right? When you put them all on the same level of pedestals, you know what that's called? It's called the floor. The origin of the word priority was a singular word. It was never meant to be plural. It literally means the first thing, not the first things. It didn't make sense a couple hundred years ago to have priorities because of the actual meaning of the word.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Not understanding this, or maybe even not admitting it to ourselves, literally makes us crazy, because now we have all these things competing for number one and we're not sure what to do with them or how to decide which is more important. But I want you to understand that having a priority doesn't mean the other things are not important. It just means they're not the first thing that gets addressed either in your day, your week, your month. That doesn't mean the other things are less important or less valuable. It just means that they're not the first thing that you're gonna put your time and energy into. So I want to encourage you to practice this mindset shift by eliminating the word priorities and focusing only on the word priority and reminding yourself what I just said, that it doesn't make anything else not important. It just means that you're going to put them in the order of which you are going to address them. Now, I'm going to teach you my prioritization model that I use in any area that I'm trying to prioritize, whether it's the overall picture or whether it's maybe just departments of my life, like my personal life or my professional life. I want you to grab a pen and a piece of paper, maybe even turn that paper sideways and turn it into 4 separate columns so that you're gonna title the top of each of these columns. The very first column, I want you to title self-care. The second column, I want you to title people. The third column, I want you to title big rocks. And the fourth column, I want you to title everything else. Now I'm going to show you how I use this prioritization model in 2 different aspects of my life, both in my overall life and then in just my business. In my overall life, the very first thing that I prioritize or that I make sure goes on my schedule to the extent that it needs to go on my schedule, which does not mean that it has more time or that it gets more time than other things. It just means that it gets scheduled first, either first in my day or the first thing that I'm going to put in my week. And that's going to be my self-care, because like we all know, if we don't put on our own oxygen mask, we're not helping anybody else on that burning plane going down from the sky, which is a lot what this year feels like. We need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves first. That second column is people, and what I'm thinking in my overall picture is naturally my family. So that's going to be my husband and my son first. Then it's probably going to be my mom. Shout out to my mom. She always watches my videos. Hi, Mom. And then anybody else, friends, coworkers, family. But I'm going to be looking at personal relationships first because it ties back into that first category, which is self-care. My category for big rocks is the long-term important things that I want to make sure my life is creating or producing or moving towards. So this could be a personal goal or it could be a professional goal. Right now for me, it is a professional goal. I'm working on a course. At one point, I'm going to be moving that towards a book. That will be my next big rock. I'm going to be looking at speaking. I actually am already working on that as a big rock. So I want to make sure that those things get prioritized next in my schedule. Now I want to make it clear again that just because my self-care comes first doesn't mean it gets the most time. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Doesn't mean that just because people come before work doesn't mean they get more time than work. It just means that they get prioritized first so that the needs of that category are getting met first. I'm scheduling them first in my calendar. Just because something is higher on the list doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be spending more time on it, okay? I'm repeating that multiple times because I see that issue happen over and over again. My family's most important, so I'm spending the most time in that category, when in fact, your family may not need as much time as you think, and you may be able to take some of that time from them and put it into those big rocks, the big goals that you're working on. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say big rocks, I have a video on time blocking where I describe the idea of big rocks, and I highly recommend that you check that out because it ties into what we're talking about here as well. And then that category for everything else is literally everything else. After I've scheduled my self-care and I've made sure that I'm scheduling time for family and friends, and I've scheduled time for the most important things that I want to move forward 3, 5, 10 years from now, then I'm scheduling everything else into my calendar. Nothing else gets scheduled unless those things are taken care of. Now, this model of prioritization works the same in business. First, when I schedule my business hours, the first thing I'm looking at is self-care, which in my business doesn't necessarily look like, a hot bath. What it looks like is caring for my business and nurturing the business growth. So a lot of times for me, this is training, this is skill development, this might be some mindset work, things like that. The next thing is going to be people. So people is going to be meeting with my team. It's going to be meeting with clients or customers or doing any sort of client-facing work. Now, this isn't always 100% accurate because it's easy to call social media people, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about client phone calls. I'm talking about answering a customer's email. I'm talking about really specific one-to-one interactions with people and not just going on social media and generally connecting with a broader audience. Then again, I'm scheduling time for those big rocks, the most important things in my business in the long term, not in the short term. And then I am scheduling everything else. So how do you implement this model of prioritization for yourself? Well, you've already got the 4 categories, right? I want you to start brain dumping everything that you are juggling in your brain, everything you feel like you need to be doing into these categories, and allow yourself to just take some time and fill it completely out. You can even go back to each category and categorize what feels most important within that category. So when I'm looking at self-care, food for me is one of the most important things because it helps my body. I have a chronic illness and a chronic disability, and it helps me feel the best when I'm making sure to spend plenty of time on the nutrition going into my body. So that's going to go on the top of my list. Whereas hot baths are really nice, but they're actually pretty low to the bottom in terms of the ROI that they create. You want to do this with every single category. You want to just look at, maybe compare 2 or 3 things and say, okay, of these 2 things, what's more important? Move one up. Of these next 2 things, what's more important? Move one up. And just play around with it until you can get it in somewhat of a prioritized list. Now, again, I realize that everything seems important, so I don't need you to perfect this list, but do the best you can, and we're gonna move on to step number 2 to help you perfect it over time. Step number 2 is to lay it all out, and I recommend that you lay it all out into an empty schedule of 1 week. What I mean by empty schedule is not necessarily that you need to empty your schedule right now, but just take a calendar page that just has 1 week in it so that you can visualize what this might look like over the span of a week. I don't recommend doing too much more than that. I definitely don't recommend doing any less than that. The first thing that you're gonna do is write in any immovable objects. And what I call an immovable object is something that you need to do that you can't really get much wiggle room on, if any at all. So this might be, for instance, if you have a 9-to-5 job while you're working on your business or other goals, you wanna write that in first. The next thing you're gonna write in is time for self-care. Now it helps if you go through all of your self-care items, the things that you really wanna be doing, and estimate how much time it will actually take you, maybe even time it so that you can get a really accurate estimate. This will help you to schedule it into your day. You get to decide, do you need to do this every day or every week? I have things that I need to do every single morning, every single afternoon, and every single night, especially because I'm moving through a really intense time with my health as well as with personal growth. So I'm doing a lot of self-care and a lot of mindset work, and it takes a lot of time and energy. I also have things that I do just on a weekly basis, as well as things that I do on an every other week basis. But what I try to do is block out the same time for self-care. So if I'm not doing my every other week thing that week, I can do something else for self-care in that time period. Then you're gonna write in the time you need with loved ones. So maybe this is carving out dinner time on a Sunday, time on a Saturday, games that you wanna be at with your kids. You're gonna write all of those things in next. And again, remember, it doesn't necessarily matter how much time you're writing in, but the quality of that time instead. Then I want you to look and see what's left. What is left on your calendar is the actual hours that you have to invest in your goals or your business. I know most of you are entrepreneurs who watch this, so I'm gonna be referring to it as your business. The number of hours you have left then get to be chunked down into those big rocks and into everything else. And I want you to take out at least 25% of that week just for your big rocks. I know that can seem like a crazy amount of time, but the truth is, if you're not spending that much time working on your business, not just in your business, meaning you're not just doing the day-to-day things to keep your business moving today, you're doing the things that are gonna keep your business moving in the future. If you're not doing that, you're probably gonna have a really hard time moving your business in the future. Remember that the things you do on your business today creates your success 6 to 12 months from now. So if you're not planting the right seeds and nurturing the right things now, you're not going to have much of a harvest later on down the road. Now, what I've just described is a tool called time blocking. And if you would love to get better at time blocking or learn more about it, I have a free guide called Time Blocking Boss that I will link in the description below. It will walk you through some really effective strategies to help you avoid some of the common mistakes that go along with time blocking. I also have an upcoming video on one of the biggest issues with time blocking, which is how to keep the schedule that you've just created on track. And if that's something that's of interest to you and you're not already subscribed, be sure you do so that you see that. Should be coming out in the next few weeks. Now, we could go a lot deeper into this topic, and the Time Blocking Boss download will do a lot of that for you and answer some of the common challenges that come up around this. But I want to answer the burning question that I get from so many of you, which is, what about everything else? I've laid everything out. I've got my big rocks, my self-care, my people are all scheduled in. I've got time for clients and time for customers, and I've got the most important, jobs and tasks in my business, but I've got this whole list of everything else that I want to get done too that also seems really important. What do I do with all of that if it seems like I'm not going to have the time? Are you ready for this? Take it in. It's going to hurt a little. You let the chips fall where they fall. Here's the thing, if you focus on your real priorities, the inconsequential things will have a tendency to fall away, and the important things that need to get done have a crazy freaking way of getting done. I don't know how it happens. I cannot answer that for you, but I promise that it happens. I've seen it over and over again in myself and in my clients. But you have to be willing to put your blinders on to the most important things and allow everything else to slowly align around those things. And again, that analogy that I draw on the big rocks, or about the big rocks in that video that I've linked below called What is Time Blocking? will really describe this to you really well and help you to understand how this actually happens. I'm gonna be really blunt with you here. If you don't make time for your priorities and protect that time fiercely, even at the sacrifice of other things, you will not stand a chance at success. Because this practice that I've just taught you around how to prioritize is not just about creating an organized week, it's about creating a sustainable system, creating something that will actually sustain long-term success. Because if we are not consistently working on the things that will help us to grow ourselves, our relationships, and our own businesses, our goals, our skills in certain areas, if we're not constantly, consistently working on the things that will allow those things to grow, those things will atrophy. So yes, this is challenging. You will be making some sacrifices to make this work, but I also want you to understand that at least 75% of that everything else column actually doesn't matter as much as we insist it does. There are a lot of things you're doing in your business because you think you have to, when there are other people out there not doing those things and creating more success because they're able to focus on things that are actually driving things forward. So whether you think you need to be on every social media platform, or you think you need to be showing up in every Facebook group, or you think you need to be doing all of the different things yourself versus finding help or hiring things or whatever the issue might be, as long as you feel like you have to do those things, you will consistently keep yourself going around and around and around the same problems and never forward. And there's also something called Parkinson's law, which means the size of the task will actually expand according to the time you allow it. So if you force something into a smaller time frame, you're gonna find a way to get it done in that time frame, but if you give it twice as much time, it will actually take twice as much time. So I know I'm dropping some hard truth bombs on you and some serious mindset shifts, and I know that this is not a simple or an easy practice, but I also know that you can do this because the moment you focus on the things that matter the most in the different areas of your life, your health, your well-being, your relationships, and your long-term goals and success, what you really want your work and your life to be about, the more joy and success and happiness you're gonna be able to experience. And that makes this whole process become a lot easier because you start to see the results of it. So don't forget to download that time blocking boss. That's gonna be a really crucial tool for you. And then be sure to comment below with your best tips on how to prioritize or any questions that you have or wherever you might be getting stuck in this process. And if you would love more videos to help you crush your goals, not your soul, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Give this video a thumbs up and then share it with other women who are also frustrated that their priorities are getting lost in the shuffle. Then check out this next video on overwhelm to help you take this topic just a little bit further. Fist bump for watching to the end. I'll see you in the next one.